The night roared, not with drums, but with the hungry crackle of flames devouring everything in their path. Umuaka glowed an angry red, smoke choking the air, carrying screams and the scent of burnt dreams. Against this chaos, a young man named Oba knelt, his body trembling. His hands, once strong and sure at the forge, were now blackened and still. The flames he had unleashed reflected in his wide, unblinking eyes. A boy who, in his desperate desire to serve the light, had burned what he loved most. 3 huts collapsed in succession, their rafters breaking like old bones. The sacred altar, where generations had prayed, crumbled into ash and ember. "What have I done?" he whispered, but his voice was swallowed by the roar of the fire he could not control. "Come closer, my people. Sit with me by this fire, the one that burns steady and warm, not wild and hungry." This is not just Oba's story. It is the story of every heart that burns too fast, every passion that forgets to listen. So settle in. Let the drums guide your heart. And remember, there are lessons in every flame. Can you hear the whisper in the flames? Say you hear. Before the smoke and sorrow, Umuaka was a jewel nestled between thick forests and golden rivers. The blacksmiths shaped iron with patience learned from their fathers. The herbalists gathered leaves in silence, knowing healing comes to those who wait. It was a place where tradition was a compass, pointing every generation toward balance. Oba was born into this world of order, the only son of Azina the blacksmith and Mama Neka the herbalist. He worked his father's forge with a divine fury, the hammer striking iron with a rhythm that was more a battle cry than a melody. "Why must we be so slow?" he muttered one evening, watching others work. "The gods honor diligence, not laziness." Azina, his face lined with the wisdom of 50 seasons, did not look up. "My son, the finest blade is not forged the quickest, but tempered with the most care. The iron tells you when it is ready, not you." Oba said nothing, but his eyes betrayed his thoughts. He believed the gods favored the bold, not the hesitant. The villagers watched him with a mixture of admiration and caution, whispering, "That boy carries the sun in his chest." The tension found its focus when Chief Priest Okeke, his voice ancient and resonant, addressed the village. "The festival of the new moon is upon us. The sacred fire must be lit only when the moon kisses the crown of the great Irako. This is the divine order." A wave of excitement passed through the crowd, but Oba felt a familiar heat rise within him. He turned to his friend Chike, his voice low and fervent. "Why must we wait? Our hearts already burn with devotion. Is the position of the moon more important than the fire in our spirits?" Chike frowned. "Because the elders say so. Oba, this is how it has always been. Tradition for tradition's sake is not wisdom." Oba replied, his spiritual pride swelling. "It is fear." He began to gather a group of young men who admired his boldness, and together they started to break small traditions, all in the name of what Oba called a greater zeal. On the night of the festival, the air was thick with anticipation. The deep, hypnotic beat of the drums echoed through the forest. The entire village was gathered, their faces turned towards the emerging moon. Chief Priest Okeke stood silent and still before the unlit altar, his eyes fixed on the sky. Oba could not stand the stillness. His heart hammered against his ribs. He felt a surge of emotion, a heat he mistook for divine prompting. "The spirit is moving now," he whispered fiercely. "Why do we delay? The gods know my heart." "Oba, don't," Chike hissed, sensing his friend's intentions. "Wait for the priest." But Oba was already moving. He burst from the crowd, grabbed a torch, and thrust it into the sacred pyre. "I offer you my fire," he cried out. For a single, terrifying moment, the flames leapt up, bright and triumphant. Then a sudden, unnatural wind howled through the clearing, feeding the fire, twisting it into a monstrous, roaring beast. The sacred altar collapsed with a groan. Embers flew like angry spirits, landing on thatched roofs. Women grabbed their children and ran. Men shouted for water, but the river was too far. One hut became two. Two became three. The home of the oldest elder was consumed in minutes. Oba stood frozen, the torch still in his hand, watching the destruction unfold. His mother's scream cut through the noise like a blade. "Oba, what have you done?" He dropped the torch. His knees buckled. He fell to the ground, his hands gripping the earth as if trying to hold on to something solid. But there was nothing solid anymore. Only flames. Only ruin. The judgment was swift and solemn. The council of elders stood before the grieving village. Chief Priest Okeke's voice was heavy with sorrow. "Oba, son of Azina, you have brought dishonor. You have acted in pride, believing your passion was greater than the wisdom of our ancestors. You have shown us that zeal without knowledge is a fire without a hearth. It consumes everything, including the one who carries it." Oba said nothing. There was nothing to say. "You are hereby banished from Umuaka for 1 full season," Elder Okeke continued. "Go into the forest. Seek the silence you refuse to honor here. Perhaps the trees will teach you what we cannot." Oba's mother sobbed. His father's jaw tightened, but he did not protest. The decision was just, and so Oba left. He walked into the forest with nothing but the clothes on his back and the weight of his shame. The trees closed around him like a prison. He wandered for days, eating wild fruits, drinking from streams, sleeping on the hard ground. He was alone with his thoughts, and they were merciless. "I wanted to serve," he whispered to the darkness. "I only wanted to serve." But the darkness did not answer. On the 7th day, deep in the forest, Oba found a clearing. In its center sat an old man, tending a small fire. The fire was no larger than a cooking pot, yet it burned steadily, neither flaring nor fading. The old man fed it 1 twig at a time, his movements slow and deliberate. Oba approached consciously. "Who are you?" "I am Nananyelyo, keeper of the flame." "I am Oba. I have been exiled. I know who you are." Nananyelyo finally raised his eyes, and Oba saw that they were clear and deep, like pools of still water. "The forest speaks. It told me a young fire was coming, one that had burned itself out." "Sit," Nananyelyo said. "Words mean nothing here. Only the fire speaks truth." And so Oba sat. For days, he watched the old man tend his small flame. Nananyelyo never let it grow too high, never let it dwindle too low. "Why do you keep it so small?" Oba asked one evening. "Because a fire that serves does not need to roar," Nananyelyo replied. "It only needs to burn true." "But what if the fire wants to grow? What if it has the strength to become something greater?" Nanalugo smiled. "Asad, knowing smile. Fire that listens to the wind will burn down the forest. Fire that listens to the heart of the one who tends it will cook the meal, warm the home, and light the path. Tell me, Oba, which fire do you want to be?" Oba had no answer. The lessons continued. Nananyelyo taught him that zeal without direction is like wind without purpose. It scatters everything and builds nothing. He taught him that the gods do not honor loudness but faithfulness. One night, Oba dreamed. A woman made of flame stood before him. Her eyes were embers, her hair flowed like smoke. "You carry me," she said, "but you do not yet understand me. I am not meant to be unleashed. I am meant to be directed. Learn this, Oba, or I will consume you as I consumed your village." He woke with tears on his face. When the season of exile ended, Oba returned to Umuaka. He walked slowly, his head low, his heart humble. The villagers watched him with wary eyes. His mother ran to him and held him tightly. His father nodded once, a gesture that said more than words ever could. Elder Okeke summoned him. "Do you understand now why we wait?" "Yes," Oba said quietly. "I understand." The next festival of the new moon arrived. This time, Oba stood at the back, unwilling to step forward. But Elder Okeke called him. "Come, Oba, light the fire." The crowd murmured, some in protest, others in curiosity. Oba stepped forward, his hands steady, his heart calm. He held the torch and waited. He watched the moon rise slowly. He felt the old fire stirring in his chest. But this time he did not obey it. He waited and waited, and when the moon finally touched the crown of the great Irako tree, he lit the fire. This time, the flames rose gently. They did not roar. They did not rage. They burned with a golden warmth that filled the clearing, steady and sure. The villagers gasped, then cheered. Elder Okeke smiled. Now, the old priest said, "You are ready." Oba did not become a hero overnight, but over time, he became a teacher. He formed the Circle of Fire, teaching young apprentices to temper their passion with patience. He showed them how to carry fire without being consumed by it. The same energy that had once destroyed now built up and fortified. When people asked him how he changed, he would smile and say, "I learned that even the sun waits for morning before it shines. I learned to burn, but to listen." So, my people, before you close this story and return to your own fires, remember this. Zeal is a divine gift of fire in the soul. But when that fire is fanned by pride and ignores the wisdom of divine order, it becomes a destructive force. Zeal is a good servant, but a cruel master. The flame that forgets its hearth will find no home. If this story stirred something in you, let me know in the comments below. Share a time when your passion led you astray, or when patience saved you. If you want to hear more stories that feed the soul, subscribe and join our circle. Let us gather by the fire again soon. Until then, may your zeal be steady, your wisdom deep, and your light never fade. May your fire always listen. Fire must listen. Fire must listen.